So it looked like for a moment there that Capcom was starting 2020 right. Everyone was enjoying Championship Edition, people were streaming it, making way too early tier lists, showing new setups, all these crazy gimmicks. And then out of nowhere, one fateful day on Reddit, some person named Altimore posts this fix for the PC version's netcode. And it works. People can play on PC all across the world, all across the US. It works great. I mean, still has some problems, but way better than what there was before. And unfortunately, it does not work for the PS4 version, and crossplay is kind of a mess right now. But Capcom definitely has a case of the Mondays, and I feel a little bit bad because a new community manager just got announced. And if you look at the blog post, at least at the time that I was making this video, the first comment is straight to the point. So this PC fix brings up a lot of questions. Will this be put in the PS4 version? Will it be patched out? In fact, there was actually a server maintenance recently where everyone freaked out and they're like, oh, they're taking out the PC patch. And the truth is that all anyone can do is guess. It doesn't matter how many followers you have or how much you say you're an insider. Only the dev team knows what they will do for this. So just a quick update. Actually, while I was editing this video, I saw that Altimore was on a podcast with the Reddit SF team, and he talked about some updates that are coming to the netcode fix. Basically, that it can detect if there's someone on PS4 or someone that doesn't have the mod, and it'll revert back to something. You should really listen to the podcast for more details. I just wanted to explain it briefly. So some of the issues that might be affecting players now won't be a problem in the future, but it's pretty crazy that a community sourced fix is getting an update possibly before there's a response from the console edition. But I understand you got to go through approval processes. You can't just tap some buttons and make it go away, but still pretty funny to me. Anyway, just wanted to say that before I get those comments in the video saying like, hey, there's already a fix. You can see that Ono has acknowledged the problem. Poor guy, he's had like about 2 years running now worth of blowups. But instead of thinking about that, I wanted to think about a really interesting trend that I saw on Twitter, which is there was a lot of people who maybe haven't touched Street Fighter V or haven't played the PC version that have picked it up and tried out this new patch. So I thought, why not set this mess aside and open up another can of worms with a topic that comes up repeatedly in the FGC, which is why can't the FGC run events on PC? So I think it's important to lay a little bit of groundwork and a little bit of the history with the FGC and running events on PC. I mean, if you're really technical about it, the arcade cabinets are basically PCs. I think the most famous example was Wednesday Night Fights. So Alienware actually sponsored Wednesday Night Fights for a season, and it turned over everything to running on PC. I think it was Xbox 360 before. And it had a few issues that we'll dive into in later parts of the video. But also there was Abu Get Cup, which was a ranking event for the Capcom Pro Tour that was supposed to run on PC, but it had issues and eventually switched back over to PS4. Finally, there was the China CPT events. This was actually a premiere event and it ran on PC and it pretty much didn't have any problems. In fact, I even was in Japan for EVO Japan last year, and before the EVO Japan event, there was a strong style qualifier and everything was run on PC there for Tekken. So what are the problems with running events on the PC? What are the pros and cons? Well, you really have to take a look at it from a player and event organizer perspective. So on the player side, you go from having a very standard set of stuff that you need to get to play fighting games, right? Console, monitor, controller, right? And with the console, there's 3 options, 2 different brands. With the controller, it's either controller or joystick, and with the monitor, usually there's a set of monitors that the FGC says, please use these. Now, when you go to PC, there's so many components in the PC that can affect how the game outputs and how it looks. And there's no real way to restrict that because the PC is used for a lot of different stuff. Now, on the tournament organizer side, this can be kind of mitigated a bit, this kind of crazy freedom of choice, right? The tournament organizers say, hey, you need at least this minimum hardware to do it. They can also find hardware partners. Like Wednesday Night Fights was a good example because it had this kind of all-in-one PC that was provided by Alienware that ran the game only at these certain settings. So it's kind of on the people that are guiding the FGC, the TOs, that have to be like, okay, you know, Alienware and Asus have these all-in-ones. These will work. Please buy these. Please use these. And to be fair, having all these different parts options and configurations open more doors for the tournament organizers and other opportunities, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So we can kind of solve this hardware problem by just sticking with all-in-ones and laptops. So you can say, this laptop, this is what's going to be the tournament laptop. It's provided by MSI, and we're all going to use these. The problem is that keeping PCs maintained is harder than keeping consoles maintained. Console, maybe there's a game patch, maybe there's a firmware update, maybe there's even just an in-game update. No big deal. With a PC, there's driver updates, there's Windows updates, there's game updates, and any combination can break another. There could be a window update that comes out the morning. So basically, the tournament organizers need to stay on top of it and make sure that the systems are working. And speaking of drivers, just all the different joysticks, hitboxes, keyboards, controllers, they're not always guaranteed to work with different PCs. These will also need to be maintained and checked, and to ensure that all the players can compete with the hardware of their choice. So that's not to say that running fighting games on PC is impossible. So for example, you don't need to buy a super high-end PC to run a fighting game. They're usually not that graphically intensive. The only problem is that sometimes fighting games have bad PC ports and don't work too well at first, but usually that gets fixed over time. The other thing is that one of the big problems with changing console generations, right, is when you go from PS4 to PS5, it's a coin flip if your PS4 sticks will work on PS5, like maybe they change the ports to USB-C or something else. And also all those games, it's not guaranteed that it's going to be backwards compatible. In fact, companies are probably incentivized to not be, because you can basically resell the games later. Whereas that's not a problem with the PC. You buy the game once on Steam, it's going to work on whatever PC you put it on pretty much for a really long time. So switching to PC really isn't impossible. It just takes a bit more time, money, and effort. The real question is who benefits from the switch to PC? So the final thing I want to think about here is the impact switching to PC will have on different groups in the FGC. So for the casual viewer, fan, stream monster, switching to PC doesn't really matter. For the casual player, the person that just plays online or just plays story mode, maybe watches some tournaments, maybe goes to a tournament or two a year, it also doesn't affect them. They can play at home on a console, they can play on their super $10,000 PC with 2 Titan RTX cards in it. The first group that it really affects is people like tournament organizers, content creators, and stream producers, because of the opportunities that it offers them. So it's no big secret that the FGC is constantly trying to find ways to bring money into the scene to help grow the scene. I think every week there's a video, why isn't there money in the FGC? And the thing is that this really affects the tournament organizers, because the tournament organizers are throwing the events. They're the ones that need to bring in sponsors to pay for the event, to pay for these big prize pools. And in turn, they need to pay the production teams. The production teams put on the show that the sponsors pay to be visible on. And they want to see better and better production so that they can get more and more sponsors to pay for this. And then finally, you have the content creators who bring the general eyeballs all over the stuff. And they also need to bring in sponsors, because they're the ones that you point to and say like, hey, this many million people are watching FGC content. And PCs play a really important part in this, because it's a big leap for tournament organizers. They're the ones that got to take the first step. They have to take the risk and they have to make the investment. But what it does is it opens up more doors for them. So instead of having only Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo as a potential hardware sponsor, and obviously the stick manufacturer and the monitor manufacturer and the headset manufacturer, you can now go to all these PC manufacturers, for the RAM, for the all-in-one units, for laptops, and you can ask them for support. And say, for example, you talk to Asus and you say to Asus, you know what, we would really love you to support our event. We love your monitors. We use your monitors at your event. Can you help us? Asus might say yes, and they might give some money and some hardware. Most likely, they'll probably just give hardware and a little bit of cash maybe. And that's because their monitor division probably doesn't have the hugest marketing budget. But their laptop division, which, definitely has a higher markup and more profits for the company overall, that one has a massive marketing budget and can really change the doors and change the face of FGC events if tournament organizers can tap into that. That's going to go into the production teams, which can do bigger and better productions and actually get paid for the work that they do. Tournament staff gets paid, and content creators have all this amazing content and stuff to promote and talk about, and it all kind of works together in a circle. So this group of people really benefits greatly by having expanded hardware partners and options for sponsorship. So this brings me to the last group of people that I think will be affected by this PC change. And this is the players. This is the people going out to locals, going out to weeklies. This is people having money matches. They're the pop monsters. They're buying t-shirts at events. They're buying sticks. They're modding their sticks. This is the heart and soul, bread and butter of the FGC. And at first glance, the switch to PC seems to make sense because it could be argued that the superior playing experience would be on the PC because the hardware is better. So I think the important thing we need to think about here is growth. And what kind of growth do you want for the FGC? So there's growth in terms of enrichment, where we're growing the amount of money that's in the FGC, which is going to create a bigger spectacle and more opportunities for the people that rise to the top. And then there's growth in terms of sustaining the FGC. And when I say sustaining, the reality is that you join the FGC most likely when you're younger, in your teens to 20s, and as time goes on, life comes at you and you can't come to as many events. And you're still part of the FGC, but you're not too active, right? So you need growth, which means you need people coming in to replace the people going out. And preferably you have growth where there's just more and more people overall. And I think that's the kind of growth that the FGC has had over the last 10 years. And I think that's the kind of growth that the FGC continues to need to do and focus on. And I don't think switching to PC would be beneficial to maintaining that type of growth, because enrichment is a sort of first world perspective on the FGC. This really will only benefit certain territories, because if you think about the Tekken World Tour and the dojo system revealed that there's so many more communities that the FGC didn't know about in emerging countries and emerging territories. And speaking from personal experience, while PCs aren't too expensive, something like just getting a PlayStation console, a monitor, and a stick could be a huge luxury for someone living in the Philippines. So imagine now having to build a PC, especially in certain countries where such components are really hard to find, and it could be hard to even get those all-in-ones or laptops. It would become prohibitive to take part in the FGC. You couldn't join those games and you couldn't play, and why would you stay interested in something that you couldn't play? And that would inhibit that growth that I feel is important to the FGC. And that's why I think, maybe not quite yet the time to switch to PC. But I've rambled long enough for this video, so I put the question to you. What do you think Capcom does to address this netcode fix? And what do you think are the benefits on playing on PC versus console? And finally, do you think it's time that the FGC takes the plunge and switches to PC in order to open up more sponsorship opportunities? Let me know in the comments. Really excited to read what you say. Make sure to give a like if this video had enough mind games for you. And if you think Netcode is a blow up, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, y'all. See you later.